A personal note from me to all of you watching as I finish up the series with this story. Before we dive in, I want to be real with you. This is one of the hardest teachings Jesus ever gave. And honestly, one that I struggle with too. Loving your enemies doesn't come naturally to anyone. It's not easy. It's not comfortable. But Jesus didn't call us to easy. He called us to transformation. And what you're about to hear isn't about guilt. It's about grace. It's about discovering that what feels impossible to us is possible with Him. So, let's step into this together.
What if the hardest words Jesus ever spoke were the ones we keep ignoring? Not the call to believe, not the promise of blessing, but the command that cuts to the core. Love your enemies. We quote it. We admire it. But do we obey it? This is the one teaching that exposes our hearts, and the one most Christians refuse to follow. The command we'd rather forget. We highlight His promises. We cling to His blessings. But when His words cut against our nature, we soften them, twist them, or simply walk away. This is that command. There are teachings of Jesus we love to quote. Verses that fit neatly on coffee mugs and Instagram captions. Words that comfort, inspire, and make us feel wrapped in grace. But then there are other words. Words that cut. Words that don't trend because they don't flatter our preferences. Words so sharp, they leave us with only two choices: obey or excuse them away. One of those words comes straight from the lips of Jesus, in His most famous sermon. A command so radical, so humanly unnatural, that even the most devoted believers often sidestep it without a second thought. But I say to you, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. Luke 6:27-28. Most of us nod politely when we hear it. We might even whisper an amen. But deep down, something resists. Because everything in us screams the opposite. Hate those who hate you. Fight those who fight you. Repay what was done to you. That feels fair. That feels natural. And yet Jesus looks us in the eye and says, no, not in my kingdom. This isn't an optional upgrade to the Christian life. It's not a teaching for the spiritually elite. It's a command for anyone who dares call Him Lord. And yet, be honest, how many Christians actually live this way? How many truly love their enemies, not tolerate, not avoid, not stay civil, but love? How many bless the person who curses them, instead of quietly plotting their downfall? How many of us pray for those who mistreat us, not for their punishment, but for their good? The truth is hard to swallow. Most of us don't. Most of us never have. And that's why this teaching sits like a stone in the shoe of modern Christianity. Present, uncomfortable, and mostly ignored. But Jesus didn't give this command to make our lives harder. He gave it to reveal what it means to truly follow Him. Because loving those who love us, that costs nothing. Anyone can do that. But loving the ones who wound us, that is the litmus test of kingdom life. That is the mark of a disciple. This story will take us deep into that uncomfortable space, where faith stops being theory and starts becoming obedience. We will explore why Jesus made this teaching central, what it reveals about the heart of God, and why refusing to obey it puts us on a collision course with everything Jesus came to build. And then, the harder question: what would it look like if we stopped excusing this command and started living it? How would it change our homes, our churches, our world? This isn't just another teaching. This is the command that exposes our hearts, the one that strips away the illusions and leaves us asking, do we really want to be like Jesus, or just admire Him from a distance? The question isn't whether this teaching matters. The question is, will we obey it? The love that breaks the cycle. Hate breeds hate. Revenge fuels revenge. And the world spins endlessly in the grip of violence. But Jesus dared to say, stop the wheel. Not with power, but with love. When Jesus commands us to love our enemies, He isn't offering a nice idea for moral improvement. He is dismantling the very system that runs the world, the endless cycle of retaliation. From ancient vendettas to modern feuds, humanity thrives on payback. If you hit me, I hit back harder. If you take from me, I take more from you. It's the default setting of a broken world. and it's older than Cain and Abel. But Jesus steps into that cycle and shatters it with a word: love. And not a love that waits for apology, not a love that whispers from a safe distance. This is active, costly, inconvenient love, a love that blesses the one who curses you, a love that turns insult into intercession, a love that refuses to mirror the hostility thrown at it. This isn't passivity, it's warfare, spiritual warfare of the highest order. Because it takes more strength to forgive than to fight, more courage to bless than to curse. Why is this command so central? Because it reveals the very DNA of God's kingdom. A kingdom where mercy triumphs over judgment, where grace outruns vengeance, where love isn't just an emotion, it's an ethic. Jesus didn't come to create a slightly kinder version of human society. He came to invert the order of things. To teach a way so radical, it feels almost impossible, until you remember who walked it first. And that's where most Christians stumble. We assume Jesus' command is too idealistic, a poetic exaggeration to make a point. But he wasn't exaggerating when he prayed for the men who drove nails through his hands. He wasn't speaking metaphorically when he healed the ear of the soldier sent to arrest him. He wasn't using hyperbole when he died for enemies who didn't want him. Love your enemies is not theory. It is the way of the cross. And the cross is not just something Jesus carried. It's something he invites us to pick up. That's what makes this teaching so threatening. It strips away our excuses. It confronts our pride. It asks us to give up the illusion of control and trust a love that feels absurd in a world addicted to retaliation. And yet, this love is not weakness. It is strength under the rule of heaven. Because when you love an enemy, you declare that hatred has no claim on your heart. When you bless a persecutor, you announce that darkness cannot dictate your response. When you forgive the unforgivable, you break the chain that has bound generations before you. Jesus ties this command to identity. Love your enemies, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. Matthew 5:44-45. Why? Because God loves his enemies. He gives rain to the righteous and the wicked. He offers mercy, even to those who spit in his face. To live like that is to look like him. Anything less is not discipleship. It's imitation religion. And this is why so many refuse to obey. Because loving an enemy is costly. It costs ego. It costs the right to hold grudges. It costs the pleasure of revenge. And yet, on the other side of that cost is freedom, peace, and a power that hell cannot counterfeit. So we come to the question that will haunt this entire story. Do we want a faith that feels safe, or a faith that looks like Jesus? Because only one of those can change the world, and only one fulfills his command. The cross behind the command. This wasn't an abstract ideal. It was a foreshadowing of wood and nails, because the day he said, "Love your enemies," he already knew he'd die for his. When Jesus said, "Love your enemies," he wasn't writing a proverb for philosophers. He was unveiling the logic of the cross. That sentence was a prophecy, spoken in plain words before it was etched in blood. Every command of Jesus grows out of his character, and every command points to his mission. But this one, this radical call to enemy love, finds its ultimate meaning on a hill called Golgotha. The love Jesus demanded was the love he embodied, and he embodied it when his enemies nailed him to wood and mocked him with dying breath. That's why this teaching is more than a moral principle. It's a cruciform reality. To obey it is to walk in his steps. To ignore it is to deny his way. But the roots run deeper still. Enemy love is not new to the New Testament. It is the heart behind every thread of God's redemptive story. From the garden onward, God has pursued rebels, not with revenge, but with grace. When Adam and Eve turned away, he clothed them. When Israel worshipped idols, he sent prophets, not executioners. And when the world spit in his face, he came near as a baby, not a conqueror. Every act of God whispers the same refrain: love that outlasts hostility. So when Jesus stands on a Galilean hillside and says, "Love your enemies," he is not introducing a novelty. He is revealing the heartbeat of heaven. He is saying, in essence, if you want to belong to my Father, this is what he looks like. This is what his kingdom smells like. It is not built on domination. It is built on self-giving love, even for the ones who hate you most. The ultimate symbol of this command, of course, is the cross. There, the theory becomes flesh. There, enemy love goes from the lips of Jesus to the veins of Jesus. And it is on that hill we see the full scandal of grace, the innocent praying for the guilty, the Creator forgiving his executioners, the Holy One embracing shame to open a door for the unholy. And yet, we sanitize the cross. We frame it in gold. We hang it on walls. But the cross is not jewelry. It's a manifesto. It is Jesus saying, "This is how far love will go. This is what it costs to break the curse of hate. This is the road you must walk if you call me Lord." Every lash he bore was an act of enemy love. Every step toward Calvary was obedience to his own command. And when the hammer fell, sealing his fate, so did the words, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." That prayer was not just for soldiers on a hill. It was for us, because every sin makes us his enemies. And yet, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Romans 5:8. That is the gospel. And that is why loving enemies is not optional. It is gospel-shaped living. To refuse it is to refuse the very nature of the one we claim to follow. This is the symbolism that transforms everything. The cross is not just the reason we are forgiven. It is the pattern for how we forgive. The blood is not just what covers us, it is what compels us. And the love that broke the power of sin is the same love that can break cycles of hate today. But only if we obey. And that obedience will always look like a cross. When loving feels impossible, it sounds beautiful in theory. Until the wound is fresh, the insult still burns, and the enemy has a name. That's where obedience begins. It's one thing to admire this command in a sermon. It's another to apply it when betrayal still echoes in your ears. Loving enemies sounds noble, until the enemy is real, until they've lied about you, stolen from you, broken what can't be fixed. Then this teaching stops being an idea and starts feeling like an impossibility. And that's exactly the point. You can't do this without Jesus. That's why it's the marker of true discipleship, because everything in us resists it. Our instincts scream for revenge, for vindication, for payback, but Jesus doesn't lower the bar. He raises it beyond human reach so that grace can carry us over. This means the first step isn't trying harder. The first step is surrender. It's admitting, I can't love them on my own. And then inviting the Spirit of Christ to love through you. Because this command was never meant to be obeyed in the strength of flesh. It was meant to showcase the power of the kingdom. What does this look like practically? It starts in prayer, not the kind where we ask God to fix them, but the kind where we bless them. Lord, give them peace, heal their wounds, show them mercy. At first, it feels unnatural, forced, maybe even hypocritical. But over time, prayer softens what pride hardens. It doesn't excuse the wrong, but it breaks its grip on our heart. Next, it moves into action. Doing good to those who hurt us is not about becoming a doormat. It's about choosing a posture of grace when everything in you craves retaliation. It's refusing to post the revenge comment, refusing to fuel the rumor, choosing restraint when you could choose rage. Sometimes, it's as simple as silence in the face of insult, or as radical as generosity to someone who wronged you. Does this mean ignoring justice? No. Jesus never told us to enable abuse or abandon truth, but he did call us to uproot bitterness before it poisons our soul. He called us to live unshackled from the need to win every fight, because revenge doesn't heal, it chains you to the wound. Forgiveness breaks that chain. Enemy love snaps it in two. And here's the paradox. The more you love your enemies, the freer you become. Because suddenly, their power over your emotions dissolves. They can't control you through hate. They can't own you through offense. You're no longer reacting to darkness. You're responding with light. Imagine what this could look like if the church lived this out. What if we stopped mirroring the outrage of the culture and started shocking the world with undeserved kindness? What if believers became known, not for political battles or online brawls, but for a love so irrational it could only be explained by the cross? The early church turned empires upside down with this ethic. When persecuted, they blessed. When beaten, they prayed. When martyred, they forgave. And their enemies eventually became their brothers, not because they out-argued Rome, but because they out-loved it. That's why this command matters now more than ever. Because we live in a world drunk on division, a world addicted to retaliation, and Jesus looks us in the eye and says, "Love your enemies, do good, bless, pray." Not tomorrow, not when it's easy. Now. Because obedience delayed is still disobedience, and the time for light to shine in the darkness is now. When obedience costs everything, it's easy to worship Jesus with words. It's harder to follow him to a cross, but the kingdom doesn't run on comfort. It runs on love that bleeds. The words have echoed through 2,000 years of history. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. We've preached them, memorized them, quoted them in books and sermons. But living them, that's where the line is drawn between fans of Jesus and followers of Jesus. Because this command is not safe. It doesn't flatter your pride or feed your ego. It doesn't let you cling to grudges or justify your revenge. It asks for more than forgiveness. It demands love. And not just for those who love you back, but for those who wound you most. That's why so many walk away, not openly, not defiantly, but silently. We smile at the words and then live like they were never spoken. And in doing so, we lose the very thing that makes the church different. Because Jesus said, "This is the evidence, this is the sign. By this, everyone will know you are my disciples. If you love one another." John 13:35. And if that love is meant to mark us with friends, how much more with enemies? So here's the question that will not let us go. What would happen if we took this seriously? What if instead of mirroring the outrage of the world, we shocked it with radical kindness? What if we prayed as passionately for those who hurt us as we do for those we love? What if forgiveness became our reflex instead of our last resort? The ripple effect would be unstoppable. Families healed, divisions mended, a watching world drawn, not by arguments or marketing, but by a love it cannot explain. A love that looks like Calvary, a love that disarms hatred without ever picking up its weapons. But here's the truth. This love will cost you. It will cost the right to nurse your wounds. It will cost the pleasure of revenge. It will cost your pride. And in return, it will give you something the world cannot: freedom, peace, and the unmistakable resemblance of your Father in heaven. Because when you love your enemies, you look like him. And isn't that the point? This isn't a suggestion, it's a summons. A holy dare to live the kind of life that cannot be faked, cannot be fabricated, and cannot be lived apart from Jesus himself. So, will we obey? Will we let go of the excuses and step into the radical, upside-down ethic of the kingdom? Or will we remain content to admire Jesus from a distance, while refusing the one command that proves whether we truly know him? The choice is ours. The time is now. And the cross, where enemy love became flesh, is still calling.